Hello everybody, I have a huge stack of books here today because we're doing a book haul, and I have found apparently that my way of dealing with the end of the pandemic, fingers crossed, knock on wood, is to buy way too many books. So I thought I'd go through a couple of them with you guys and see what you think. First up, I've got my first ever physical art that I received from Orbit, The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I just uploaded my full review of this book to my channel this week, so if you haven't checked that out yet, go over much more detail what I thought about that. Basically, it's a universal recommend. I really enjoyed it. It's about a world of Vikings and roaming mercenary groups about 300 years after a war between the gods has brought an end to the gods. And I don't want to say much more than that, except that I really enjoyed it. A lot of action. I highly recommend this, especially if you're like a big Brandon Sanderson fan or a big Brent Weeks fan. A very similar style of writing and a really good storyteller. So would recommend for sure Shadow of the Gods. And also, every time I say this or talk about this book, I have to say 10 out of 10 on the cover art. One of my new favorite authors, P. Djeli Clark, Ring Shout. So this book, as far as I understand, takes place in like the 1930s, early 20th century, and basically turns racism into like this evil magical force that turns racists into like legitimate monsters that kill and slaughter, which of course is a very good metaphor for what it actually does in our world. So I'm very excited. I know this got a lot of praise from a lot of people. It's a beautiful book, and I'm so excited to read anything P. Djeli Clark does. And his new first full novel is going to come out in May, so I'm definitely going to be reading that and reviewing it on the channel as well. So love this. And again, this cover art is phenomenal. The great cover art so far in this haul. Probably well themed after Ring Shout is the autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley, or as told by Alex Haley, who I believe interviewed him all throughout his life. But this is a very famous, probably the most famous biographies ever written. I have not read it, and I really want to. So obviously I've seen the Spike Lee film, which is really good, but want to read the book itself. So got that. Another political work that I'm excited to read, Howard Zinn's Passionate Declaration. This is essays on war and justice that I believe primarily came out in the early 21st century, right around the time of the Iraq War and Afghanistan War. And he's pointing out and critiquing the system of American military-industrial complex. And I'm really excited to read this. Zinn has written my favorite history work, People's History of the United States. If you haven't read it, you should read it. I think that book should be read by everyone, especially American citizens. And so I'm excited to read a book of his essays as well. This I can credit to my good friend Alan over at the Library of Alexandria, a big Daniel Abraham fan, and he pointed out this series to me, The Dragon's Path, which I think is just called The Path and the Dagger. The Dagger and the Coin. Sorry, okay. The Dagger and the Coin. And I think the whole idea here is it military might or economic might that wins wars? Daniel Abraham is half of James S.A. Corey pen name writing duo that did the Expanse series, which I really love and will be finishing later this year. So I'm excited to read his fantasy works. Both this and the Long Price Quartet are things that I'm really interested in reading. So excited that I got this as well. So this is a unique one that I got, The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. I've seen a lot of great reviews of this book from booktubers that I normally trust and have similar ideas about books with. I think the basic idea here is to take Russian folklore and bring it more into a readable format. So I don't know much more so than that. So it takes place in the Russian wilderness. And there's something about, I think, not werewolves, but something else, where bears or something like that. As you can see, I don't really know much about it, but I've heard real good things about it. I saw it at a great price, and so I picked it up. And I'm excited to get into it. I think this is more of a literary fantasy work, but I'm not sure. We'll give it a try. The next three are Jim Butcher Dresden Files books. I'm kind of like haphazardly buying them. I don't think I'm gonna definitely own the whole set. I don't like it enough to really work towards that. But if I see a cheap one, I always pick it up. So I have White Knight here, Proven Guilty, and then actually a hardcover version of Ghost Story. This will be my first hardcover that I've read in this series. These books are getting longer, I'm noticing. They're now inching up to 500 pages consistently, so that's interesting. Got 3 of them here. Need to read my Dresden Files. I'm falling behind. I haven't read one in a couple months. This book I am very, very excited about. Neil Gaiman's Norse Mythology. This is less of a narrative work, as I understand, as more an interesting encyclopedia of the major Norse myths and mythology. So I'm excited to read this, and then in light of this, read some of the Icelandic sagas, which I haven't read before. So this will be sort of a good introduction, I hope, to reading more in that vein. Basically for fodder for writing, to be quite honest. Mythology always encourages me in that sense. Anytime I see a Robin Hobb, I pick it up. This is Dragon Keeper, which is from the Brain Wilds Chronicles, the first one. I have, I think, 3 of this series, so I'm getting close to having the whole Realm of the Elderlings, which is my goal. So slowly but surely gonna get there. God Emperor of Dune. I'm going to reread Dune later in the year, as it gets closer to when the movie is going to come out. So this is just my prep for seeing if I want to keep going in that series and how far I want to go in the series. Towers of Midnight, again, another series that I'm trying to kind of slowly but steadily have all of them, is Wheel of Time, because I do want to reread it one more time some point in my life, and I just like having them on the shelf. So especially the Brandon Sanderson, Robert Jordan ones, I kind of want to read the ending again. I might do that sooner rather than later. We'll see. There's so much fantasy to read, but got that. Luck in the Shadows. This here is my Scala along with Chris over at Chris Bookish Cauldron. This was the first book. I now have already read this. I also got Stalking Darkness, and actually here, I'll just get all of these. So all of these are part of the Scala along this year by Lynn Flewelling. I've really enjoyed it so far, so happy to get back into it. Bada bing, bada boom. Power That Preserves Us is the 3rd book in the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, book 3, which is a highly rated kind of mid-90s fantasy film or fantasy novel that, to use Erickson's words, pulled fantasy kicking and screaming into more adult themes. And so it's supposed to be very, very graphic and full of tough imagery and dealing with very deeper themes. So I'm excited to read this because of the impact it had on the saga as a whole, the genre as a whole, I should say. My good friend, we're not good friends, but an acquaintance, I guess, on YouTube, someone that I've been a really big fan of, Daniel Green, his novella, Breach of Peace. It is very short. I have a whole review on this that you can check out. I've really enjoyed this, and the quality of this book for a self-published work is very, very nice. It feels nice. I like the finish. The artwork is good. It's got a good feel. The placement and tiling are all very, very nice. So he did a great job. I know this is very, very stressful, and I thought this was a really good book. And I thought it created a lot of really, really interesting discussion. It's not an all-time great by any chance, but I would recommend it to people who like especially faster-moving books and movies and films, because this is another really fast-paced work. So, Breach of Peace by Daniel Green. I should say Daniel Green is also a huge influence on me, not just as a YouTuber, but as an author. That he is sort of chasing that dream while also being a lover of the fantasy genre and putting that himself out there, I think is really, really cool. On the total, I think, opposite end of the spectrum, A Chronicle of a Death Foretold by Gabrielle Garcia Marquez. I am going to be reading this Nobel Prize winning work. Is it June or July? This is another one from my year of short classics that I will be reading this year. So we'll put that on top of the stack. I love this version of it. Also, The Giver, same reason, Lewis Lowry. This is going to be in, I think, September or October, and I think Angela from Literary Science Alliance is going to be my co-host there. So I'm excited that I picked that up. I think that'll be really, really good. Blood Dragons, the 4th book in the Rain Wilds Chronicles, which means I have all of them. I should have had that with the other one, but I forgot. Whoopsie daisies. Let's save these for last. All right, and now we are just 2 books away from, well, 4 books away from the end. Okay. Sorrowland. I don't know anything about this book except that it was given to me as an ARC, and it comes out, I think, later this year. So I really don't know much about it, to be quite frank, and I don't know if I will read it, but I got it, and so I wanted to show it to you guys. Oh, there is a blurb on the back from the author of Black Leopard, Red Wolf. I'll just read some of the back for you, since none of us know what we're talking about. I'll try to put it there so that you can look at the cover while I say this. Vern, 7 months pregnant and desperate to escape the strict religious compound where she was raised, flees for the shelter of the woods. There she gives birth to twins and plans to raise them far from the influence of the outside world. But even in the forest, Vern is a haunted woman. Forced to fight back against a community that refuses to let her go, she unleashes incredible brutality far beyond what a person should be capable of, her body racked by inexplicit and uncanny changes. To understand her metamorphosis and to protect her small family, Vern has to face the past, and more troublingly, the future. Outside the woods. Finding the truth will mean uncovering not only the secrets of the compound she fled, but also the violent history of America that produced it. Oh, it said it's a work of Gothic fiction. Coming May 2021. So there you go. We'll see if I go for this. I'm a big lover of film, so The Big Screen, The Story of the Movies by David Thompson. This is a very thick book. I probably will not be reading it cover to cover, but read sections of, getting to know the movies. I'm excited about that. Finally, we got some philosophy works that I'm sure no one is going to be excited about, but I'm pumped for. Soaring Kierkegaard's Fear and Trembling. This is a very short philosophical work that I think a lot of people would like. In Fear and Trembling, he's struggling with the idea of faith itself. And I believe, if I remember right, that he takes a lot of his inspiration from Abraham and the story in the Bible where Abraham is said to sacrifice his son as sort of a test of his faith, and whether God was right in doing that. It's a very interesting work that I read once before, a long time ago when I was at a different point in my life, so I'm interested to read it now. Kierkegaard is hard at points, but also can be incredibly brilliant and thoughtful, so I'm excited about that. Also, The Postmodern Explained by I also want to say Jean-Luc, because Jean-Luc Godard, but that's not it. Jean-Francois Leotard. So Leotard, his most famous saying, I don't know where it's from, but is that postmodernism is incredulity towards meta-narratives. And that's kind of like the catch-all definition that we always use. I used it in my postmodern video, but I actually have not read a full work by Leotard. I've read a lot of essays or encyclopedia entries by him, but I'm excited to read this whole book together and see what he does with a longer work. So found this book, excited to get to that, and it's a good sort of switch up from what I normally read in the fantasy genre. So that's it. That's one huge book haul that really is all around the spectrum of different kind of books. Let me know if you pick any of them up, or if you've read them, or what you would recommend me to read first out of this bunch, your thoughts, anything like that. As always, thanks for watching. First in, last out.